Yeah, hi folks. Today I want to look at the Brexit deal, which is fast looking like an exit Brexit deal because it doesn't seem to have much support, or has no support from most Conservatives. But one of the real questions I ask is, how did a political hack like Theresa May become the person in charge of making this Brexit deal? Why was she sent to Brussels? It doesn't make any sense. She's a non-Brexiteer. She voted to stay in the Union, so how the hell did she become the person negotiating this deal? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But first, let's have a look at what Boris Johnson's got to say.
So that's reaction here, as some of the details, and we must stress these are leaks. These are not details that we have seen in this draft text, but as it's filtering out here, you can see there's an awful lot of activity behind me. These are briefings from people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, of course, from a grouping within Parliament, a Conservative grouping who are very much from the Eurosceptic wing. They are not happy with any sense that the UK would be closely aligned with the EU. As you heard from what he said there, he does not feel that that is a true Brexit. People have talked about Brexit in name only.
Yeah, Brexit in name only is exactly what it is.
Some of them will think that that is the case if Northern Ireland is treated differently. We've heard from Sammy Wilson already, who clearly feels from what he has...
Yeah, the Northern Ireland thing is a stumbling block, isn't it? It seems to be one of the main issues.
Seen that there are issues here that are a problem for his party, and of course the DUP, a party with 10 MPs who mean that Theresa May has a majority. Without them she doesn't, and that is a bit of a problem. And we're just going to speak now to the former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. We're live on BBC News. Thank you for speaking to us. We are only at the stage where we're seeing leaks of documents.
That's right. And so we have to be pretty careful, but this has been well trailed. This has been a chronicle of a death foretold for some months now, and I think effectively it's pretty much what Ollie Robbins and Sabine Veil agreed a few weeks back anyway. We're going to stay in the customs union on this deal. We're going to stay effectively in large parts of the single market, and that means it's vassal state stuff.
Yeah, absolutely vassal state stuff. And the Brexiteers didn't want this. They want their autonomy back. They don't want to be controlled by the EU.
We are going to, for the first time in 1,000 years, this Parliament will not have a say over the laws that govern this country. It is a quite incredible state of affairs. It will mean that we are having to accept rules and regulations from Brussels over which we have no say ourselves. It is utterly unacceptable to anybody who believes in democracy. It is not the right way forward. And there is a kicker. And the kicker is that not only are we going to remain in the customs union and in large parts of the single market, but also we will not have protected our precious union. Because if you look at what they've agreed today, and again we must caveat this and say you look at the reports, then it is also accepted that there must be customs and regulatory checks down the Irish Sea between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which currently
that's ridiculous.
Not exist. And for the first time since partition, Dublin, under these proposals, would have more say in some aspects of the government of Northern Ireland than London. So I don't see how you can support it from a democratic point of view. I don't see how a unionist can support it, and I don't see how you can support it if you believe in the political economic freedom of this country. So if you ask my question, am I going to vote against it? The answer is yes.
I think we get...
Yeah. So he's going to vote against this, obviously. But the problem I have with Boris here is this. He was offered this position. He was supposed to go and negotiate this deal, but he turned it down. He didn't want to put his political life on the line for this, but he'd rather just do what he's doing now, heckle in the background and stay politically relevant. So he's really starting to smell like just a normal political hack right now. But now let's go and see what Nigel Farage has to say.
The Brexit deal is a deal that will not have a say over the laws that govern this country. It is a quite incredible state of affairs. It will mean that we are having to accept rules and regulations from Brussels over which we have no say ourselves. It is utterly unacceptable to anybody who believes in democracy. It is not the right way forward. And there is a kicker. And the kicker is that not only are we going to remain in the customs union and in large parts of the single market, but also we will not have protected our precious union. Because if you look at what they've agreed today, and again we must caveat this and say you look at the reports, then it is also accepted that there must be customs and regulatory checks down the Irish Sea between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which currently do not exist. And for the first time since partition, Dublin, under these proposals, would have more say in some aspects of the government of Northern Ireland than London. So I don't see how you can support it from a democratic point of view. I don't see how Let's speak to Nigel Farage, who's just joined me here on the balcony. Of course, is here in his capacity as the leader of the EFDD group in the EU Parliament. We were just talking with Alex Barker there about the difficulties Theresa May is facing. I expect that you don't believe this withdrawal agreement will go through.
Well, if you look at 90 Tory MPs saying they won't vote for it, even if you whittle that down by half and you add the DUP, it looks impossible. But you know, this is politics. What if the Labour Party decide they're going to support this? And in doing so, effectively split the Conservative Party. So it's still not impossible that it goes through, but I very much hope that it doesn't go through. You could argue with this deal, we give away more sovereignty, even than as members of the European Union. I mean, it is the worst deal in history. It's awful.
So I'm going to put to you the question that's been put to a lot of senior political leaders this week. Theresa May, Dominic Raab, the Chancellor yesterday. Would you rather stay in the European Union than have this deal?
No, of course not. I mean, you know, being in the European Union, you know, has meant our laws being made somewhere else, no control over our borders. I mean, the only...
But it sounds like this deal will be the same.
Minor compensation. I mean, I should be celebrating today. This is a summit about Britain leaving the European Union in a few months' time. So leaving the treaty of itself is significant. However, what we're signing up to is just impossible. So what I'm hoping is that Parliament votes it down and we leave on March the 29th without a deal.
And what's wrong with that? Just leave without a deal.
Negotiated deal. We negotiate on border problems and issues like that, but we leave without a deal. And this is all a great shame, because we could have gone for a simple free trade arrangement. For 20 years here, people have told me they'd be prepared to do it. But I'm afraid ever since Florence...
But that is still there in the political declaration. There is still the potential to have a Canada-style deal.
When?
A sliding scale of from that all the way through to Norway. I mean, it's all options to all people.
But you're looking so many years down the road, and that's the ridiculous thing. The transition period was the Article 50 period. That was the 2 years in which we should sort all this out. Look, the clue is what Philip Hammond, the Chancellor, said yesterday. We're trying to please both Leavers and Remainers. And indeed, Theresa May's letter says the same thing. Trying to be all things to all people and ultimately pleasing almost no one.
Yeah, and again, so why didn't you take this position up? And why did you have Theresa May, a political hack like her, making this deal? And obviously she wants to please all people. And you're right, trying to please all people pleases no one. But again, you had the chance to do this negotiate as well, the same as Boris had. And you turned it down.
I want to come back to that point that you made, though, that you'd be happier with this deal than staying in the European Union. There are some people who think we'll be locked into this deal for a very long time with no say here in Brussels, no say in the European Parliament.
It's an awful deal.
We'll be a vacuous state.
It's an awful deal. Look, I want the deal rejected, all right?
But if it's not?
If it's not, I'm going to be very, very unhappy. And I would have thought, if this deal in its current form goes through, then I think you may see some really big shockwaves through British politics in the next couple of years.
You talked about the difficulty of being all things to all people here. It seems to me that the real tension that this deal sets up is the clash over sovereignty and the difficulties it poses over Northern Ireland, and the clash over the union. So we have the problems over the union, people trying to keep the union together, and those who want more say over their laws. You can't have both the way that the EU is setting it up.
No, it is a mess. Very difficult to see where we go. I mean, Northern Ireland gets weakened within the UK with this deal. Even perhaps Gibraltar and our relationship there is further under challenge given concessions that are made overnight. In whichever way you look at this, the British government has given in to virtually every demand that Monsieur Barnier has made. And into the bargain, this deal is probably going to cost us nearly 60 billion sterling. So let's vote this deal down in Parliament, which I still believe will happen. And let's leave on March the 29th on WTO terms. That's the only way forward now.
We're reading in the morning newspapers that there are 4 or 5 Remain ministers within the cabinet who want to stop the no deal. Amber Rudd, of course, is one of them on the record as saying there is no majority in the Parliament for no deal. How do you think they would be able to stop that? Because there's all sorts of speculation as to how that might happen.
In terms of legislation, there is an EU Withdrawal Act. It's gone through, and we leave on March the 29th. That's what Parliament has voted for. Equally, our obligations under Article 50 are not to have a deal, it's to leave on March the 29th next year.
But there'd have to be another act of Parliament to supersede that.
There would have to be an unpicking of legislation that exists today. So from my perspective, from a Leaver's perspective, the risk of voting against this, and by the way, it won't just be Westminster that votes on this, it'll be the European Parliament too that has the final say on this. So I'm going to vote against this when it comes to the European Parliament, if it gets that far, understanding that there is a risk. And the risk from my perspective is that that Act of Parliament gets opened up and a delay to Article 50 or a second referendum gets pushed upon the British people.
Second referendum gets pushed on the people. Well, Nigel, if another referendum gets pushed on the people, you haven't got a dog show of winning. The globalists, the left, will be mobilised. You caught them asleep on the first referendum, and that was your chance, and you didn't follow through. You stepped down just after just after winning the referendum. You stepped down instead of going all the way through and going to Brussels yourself. You're starting to smell like a hack as well.
There is a risk of that, but I now think this deal is so bad that it's actually worth that.
And if that happened, would you go back into politics?
No question.